Hi there Star Wars collectors, and welcome to another Bossk's Bounty video, and welcome to episode 134 of Ask Bossk's Bounty. This is the weekly Q&A series that drops every Sunday, where I take your questions from the comment section below and do my very best to answer them for you. So if you do have a question for next week's episode, please leave it in the comment section below and hopefully you'll be featured next week. We have a bumper episode this week with loads of great questions, including a question from my son, little Bossk, considering it's Father's Day here in the UK. So if you happen to enjoy this video, don't forget to drop a like down below, subscribe if you're new, and I would just like to take this opportunity to welcome all of my new subscribers. I recently passed 22,000 and I'm already past 22,100. So in the last week or so, we've gained quite a few new subscribers, so welcome to the channel. I hope you enjoy future content. With all that being said, let's get straight on to the first question. Doug McLeod says, "Hi Tim, can you see us getting a deluxe Vader like the 2005 Revenge of the Sith build Darth Vader set? It could come with a back tank, assembler droids, and detachable limbs, helmet, chest box. I think with today's tooling, it'll be phenomenal. The face sculpt on the Revenge of the Sith version looks like a baby." So I wouldn't like to speculate on which Vader could come next, but one thing's for sure is I really don't think that Hasbro would want to waste the investment that they've put in with the all-new Darth Vader for the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, which is just there. It's an absolutely phenomenal figure. If you haven't checked out my review, it is on the channel. And I'm sure, you know, it's Darth Vader, and if they can use some parts from that figure with future versions of Vader in deluxe sets, back to tanks, thrones from the Obi-Wan series set, then I'm sure that they've got their eye on that sort of thing. But as I say, I wouldn't really like to speculate on which Vader that would be. Blockade Runner 77 says, "Since they no longer make as many vehicles for Star Wars in 3.75 inch, and they only make 1 or 2 vehicles a year, which era would you prefer them to focus on each year? OT, prequels, Mandalorian, or new media?" So I think this is probably the problem that Hasbro have, in that even just me, just one single person, really can't make their mind up what they want. So for example, I want speeder bikes from the OT. I want a new gunship from the prequels. I would like the N1 Starfighter from the Mandalorian. From new media, I would like the Inquisitor's starship. There's just so many vehicles that I would love to have in the vintage collection. It's very, very difficult for me, just me, to pin down exactly what I want. And I'm sure that's the problem that Hasbro have in terms of balancing what they put out. And I wouldn't be able to tell you which era that I would want the most. There's just so many from each. Bill Polk says, "Hey Bossk, from the old Kenner days, what was your favourite creature? These were so fun back in the day. Mine was the Dewback. Loved inserting my stormtroopers into the trapdoor in the back." I have to agree with you there, Bill. It is the Dewback, although it was pretty close with the Tauntaun, because I love the fact that they had the split belly version and you could put Luke in it and what have you. And also the Wampa's a really good creature as well. But I think the Dewback really, really takes it for me. It's just unfortunate that we never got the Sand Trooper back in the Kenner days. That is the thing about it. But I've got mine there, the original Kenner version. That particular one is pretty much unplayed with, so really lucky to have that one in my collection. Lou Reed has quite a long question here, but in short, he wants to know why he can't find any of the Army Builder sets in any online store. And the answer for that, my friend, is that unfortunately they are exclusive to Hasbro Pulse. So this is the Shore Trooper one, and it does seem a bit weird, doesn't it, that when you're promoting army building, the only place you can get them is one particular place, which isn't available around the world. And I find that a bit weird, and it is disappointing. And that is why you see a lot of these on eBay. Scalpers obviously grab them all and put them on eBay. Hopefully Hasbro will put more of these out in some way. Brad Kelly says, "Hey Tim, great video as always. Thanks for always being on top of things for us. My question, as a collector, do you view your collection as an expenditure or an investment? Under which circumstances do you see yourself parting with it if you view it as an investment?" I've got to say, I don't view it as either. I view it as a hobby. So it's my hobby collecting Star Wars figures. It has been for a very, very long time. Of course, there is an element of expenditure or investment involved in that. You don't want to overpay for things, and ideally you would like your hobby and the things that you've accumulated over that time to increase in value if they possibly can. What circumstances would I part with it? I think it would have to be like a family emergency or something like that, where I needed a sudden, injection of cash or something. Other than that, I think, hopefully it's going to be with me for life, and when I'm no longer here, it will be passed down. And they can do whatever they like with it. They can sell it and buy themselves a car, or pay for university, or I don't know, but that's how I kind of see it. Dave Satine says, hey Tim, question for this week. Do you think TVC will return to themed waves, or are those days gone? Also, possibility of a TVC Imperial Shuttle HasLab. I'm keeping my fingers crossed. That would be a good HasLab, absolutely. In terms of themed waves, I've got a bit of a bee in my bonnet about this at the moment, because obviously the wave that is just dropping around the world at the moment, which involves these 3 Obi-Wan figures here, in my opinion, now it's just my opinion, should have been a complete wave of Obi-Wan figures. Just like the Retro Collection, the Black Series is getting a lot of them. I don't think they're all in one wave, but they're getting like 9 Obi-Wan figures, for example. I think the Vintage Collection should have been one wave of Obi-Wan figures. You know, they should make a bigger deal about these new media events and actually have a wave of figures ready to drop when it comes out. I think the last time they did that was the Rise of Skywalker, where they had a complete wave, and even then you didn't get all the main characters, so it's a bit strange. I think, yeah, you're right, those days are gone, basically. I think they like to mix and match. They like to make sure that the costs involved in some of the figures are offset with like an army builder or something, so they can, that sort of thing. It's all planned, and it's a bit of a shame, really, because obviously, as I say, when I look at that Retro Collection wave specifically, there's some figures in there that I would have absolutely loved to be in the Vintage Collection, and it makes it even worse because the Retro Collection uses vintage style cards, and you can see those card backs and how they would have been in the Vintage Collection had they been in that wave. Purple Yoda says, thanks for everything you do, still my favourite part of Sunday night. Thank you so much, my friend. Quick question, if I had to buy just one, what would be your definitive Clone Trooper figure? Right, well, the problem with this, my friend, is that I don't think there is a definitive Clone Trooper figure at the moment. I've got 2 of them here. You know, this is the original Saga version, this is the Apo figure, and this is the newest 501st figure. Now, everyone knows my opinions about this one. The helmet's too big, the legs are too skinny. This one's in really, really good proportions, but unfortunately the articulation just isn't there. It's, you know, seriously lagging now in terms of articulation. So what I would say is maybe let's wait and see what happens in the future. Let's hope and keep our fingers crossed that Hasbro know that we have issues surrounding the Clone Troopers and that they give us an all-new Clone Trooper sculpt. That would be ideal. JD says, some recent figures that we've got include the 501st Trooper and Episode 2 Obi-Wan re-release and Episode 2 Anakin. Do you think these figures were released because they show up in Kenobi or just a happy accident? Also, does this mean we might get other new old figures that show up in new media? I think at this point we do have to accept that these kind of things are planned. I mean, you know, this Anakin figure, everyone's been screaming for him for quite a while to be repacked in the Vintage Collection, and of course he is going to be on that Attack of the Clones card, but the fact that he does turn up in Obi-Wan is not a coincidence. Same with the 501st. I think they were in the Book of Boba Fett flashback and things like that. These things don't happen by accident, and it's just a good way for them to get things out because it makes them current again, it makes them relevant again, and it makes us fans want them again. So it is not a random thing, it is planned, and as I say, it's not a figure that's going to cost them anything to do, but as fans, we're quite happy to take it. GeForce Racing 20 says, hey boss, great stuff as always. Question, do you have a count stroke estimate of the number of TVC, Saga, TVC adjacent that you own? Oh man, I really don't want to think about it. Well, let's see. They're up to like nearly 250 now in the line. You've got all the variants and everything. I don't know. I mean, carded figures, carded Vintage Collection and the VOTC and the Saga, it's got to be well over 300, hasn't it? Maybe even nearly 400. I don't know. I haven't counted them, but I would suggest 350 possibly. And when you think about it like that, it gets pretty crazy. All right then, so now we have a question from my son, Little Bossk.
What is your favourite Obi-Wan figure and why?
Okay, that's a good question. So you mean the ones from the new Obi-Wan series, yeah?
Yeah.
Right, okay. I've got to say, and it's going to come as no surprise, it is Darth Vader for me. The figure is just unbelievable, and he's the biggest, baddest villain out there. And what a figure, and you've got to applaud Hasbro on that one. They have done a really, really good job. What's your favourite figure out of those 3?
My one's probably Reva because she has all the lightsaber bits.
Okay, yeah, she is a good figure, comes with bags of accessories, and the head sculpt on that one is really good. I've got to say, I like all 3 of the figures for different reasons, but for me it's Vader. So in terms of Obi-Wan as well, what's your favourite thing about the Obi-Wan series? What have you enjoyed the most?
The bit that I enjoyed was when Darth Vader used the Force to pull the ship down and destroy it.
Yeah. I think that's probably a favourite of many people, even us adults. Little Boss, don't you worry about that. It was awesome seeing Vader all powerful. Rob Ernest says, great vid, BB. Question for next week. If Hasbro releases Cal Kestis in the TVC next year, as I believe they might since the Jedi Survivor video game will come out next year, how do you think Hasbro will do the BD-1 sculpt? It would be such a small sculpt and any articulation for the legs seems difficult. Would it come best as a PVC figure? No articulation. Your thoughts? Keep up the great videos. Well, to be honest, before the release of this guy, I did think that maybe that would just have to be a solid piece of plastic, no articulation whatsoever. But that thought has been completely blown out of the water when they gave us the little Lola droid. That is fully articulated, the legs move, the little wings move, and for a tiny weeny piece like that, which is smaller than BD-1, I think we can expect a pretty cool BD-1 with at least the leg articulation, because as I say, if they can do that small, then BD-1 will be no problem. Jared Cantor says, my question touches on issues on both balancing the scales and also your comment about the budget not being there for creatures. If there used to be a budget for creatures, where did it go? Is the answer as straightforward and as easy as it went to the Black Series? Or if it isn't, then is the answer inflation and the rising cost to create creatures? And Hasbro assuming it could not pass those ever-growing costs onto the consumer? Or is the answer that Hasbro does not think TVC scale, including creatures, sells enough to justify the budget needed for world building? So there's quite a lot in there. I don't really think it's as straightforward as it went to the Black Series. And in fact, if it went anywhere, it went into Mission Fleet. I think they're on record now saying that vehicles and creatures are easier for them to do in that scale. There's less detail, less articulation, all that kind of stuff, which for me really hurts because, you know, I know children want the vehicles and the creatures, but when you think about 3.75, you've mentioned it there, it is world building and it's not an action figure line. That's the Black Series. And I really do think that, you know, they should be putting more into the creatures and the vehicles in the vintage collection. But your last point there, maybe there just isn't enough sales for them to warrant doing it anymore. I really don't know, unfortunately. And it's one of those things where, you know, us in our collecting community may be in a bit of an echo chamber where we think that, you know, if they produce anything, it would sell to the right volumes that they need. But in reality, maybe that's not the case. I don't know. Cody Honey says, great episode, and I'm totally on board for smaller vehicles and creatures. Aren't we all? Question for next week. Do you think we'll get a ned-b lifter droid or a Republic security droid from The Mandalorian? I know droids are super popular and we don't get many anymore. And this was my biggest gripe about going back to the whole wave issue. Ned-b for me, I mean, I know the Inquisitors are there and they're great and everything, but the Ned-b figure for me, as you say, we love droids, we do. Droids figures are awesome, and the fact that that's coming out in the retro collection really did stink for me. That was the one that sort of annoyed me the most, because he would have been really, really cool in the vintage collection. Perhaps it's because we haven't got the other figures that would go with him. I really don't know. But yeah, maybe we'll see him in the future. Maybe it's a case of patience. But with all the other new media that's coming out and the fact that the vintage collection likes to give us Clone Wars and original trilogy as well as the new media, and it has to be spread quite thinly, it doesn't look likely anytime soon. Brett on Fet says, hello there Tim, two-part question for next week. Do you think there's any chance Hasbro will ever release a TVC figure on an original Power of the Force style card back like they did with Yak Face for any of the remaining last 17 characters before bubbled card backs go the way of the dodo? And if they did, would you want it to be part of the main line and given a regular VC number, or would you prefer it to be kept separate with no VC number? So I'm sure this is potentially conversations that Hasbro have had, especially on the back of the success of maybe the Droids Fett, possibly. Maybe they've had those conversations, but for me, I think we've already had too many figures without the coin, and it would just be a little bit jarring. I've got these two here, like this is an original vintage Kenner. Now, of course, the ATST driver wasn't a Power of the Force figure. He came out on the Return of the Jedi before, but that's the only one that I've got, unfortunately, to show you. But Han Solo Carbonite, for example, Luke Skywalker in his Stormtrooper outfit. We've got the Lando, General Lando. All of those were on Power of the Force cards back in the Kenner days, and they've been brought out on Return of the Jedi cards. And it would be a bit weird if they suddenly just changed that now for the remaining last 17. That's just my opinion. Having said that, I'm all for, you know, to pay for the tooling costs of a newly tooled figure, that they release two of them. One on the Return of the Jedi card, maybe in stores, and maybe there's an exclusive on Pulse or whatever with the coin. I'm totally down for that. And if they were to do that, then the ones that come out for the exclusive with the coin, yeah, maybe they could have a different type of VC number, like they've done for the 2 in the Razor Crest, perhaps. Adam Berry says, hey Tim, question for next Q&A. Do you know or have any idea what the quantity of TVC figures are produced by Hasbro per figure, wave, etc.? I noticed you mentioned on the Vader video that the Rogue One VC-178 has a high price on the secondary market. This could be down to quantity produced, etc. I was just fascinated in general how many Hasbro produce per figure, ballpark. So I think this is data that Hasbro themselves don't release, so I wouldn't be able to give you a definitive number on that, but I would guess that it does depend on the character. So for example, this new Darth Vader, I would imagine a fair amount of those will be produced versus perhaps the Antok Merrick's droid, for example. I would suggest that the Vader will have more in production. When it comes to that Darth Vader from Rogue One, I would suggest that the vintage collection wasn't as popular as it is now, and maybe production numbers were lower back then. There's certainly some figures that you can pinpoint to that, like the Tank Commander, for example, is another one, the R2-D2. Those figures command a lot on the secondary market, and there's got to be a reason for that, I think, and production numbers has got to be a reason for that, you know. Perhaps there was just less produced back then. Raul Lozano says, hello Tim, as always I like your videos, keep up the good work. Question for next week, since the recent reissue of TVC 1.0 figures from the expanded universe, do you think or have heard if Hasbro is to bring back some of them like Revan and Darth Plagueis, maybe even do a Thrawn or Mara Jade? So in terms of Thrawn, I think we'll have to wait until the Ahsoka series to see Thrawn. I think I've said that before. That's, you know, they'll wait for that one to be in live action. In terms of Revan, I tend to think when you look at the Black Series and successes in the Black Series with the Revan and the light side Revan, sometimes Hasbro like to follow suit. And they already tried to release Revan, the repacked one from the 2007 line, I think it was. And, you know, there was a bad reaction to that from the community and they cancelled it. So maybe since then they've been looking at giving us an all new Revan. I hope that's the case. And yeah, they'll probably look at data for other expanded universe figures that have done quite well and how the community have sort of shouted that they wanted those. And that sort of maybe forces their hand. So hopefully we'll get a new Revan. Hopefully that Darth Plagueis from the 3.75 inch Black Series will get repacked. And hopefully Mara Jade with an all new head like they did with the Shae Vizsla will get realised as well. Okay then guys, that's it for this week's video. Thank you so much for watching, and anyone that's in the UK that happens to be a father or has a father, I want to say a massive happy Father's Day to you. Thank you to my Patreon supporters and channel members as always. Your support is greatly appreciated. Thank you all for watching this episode, and we'll see you on the next one.